two excellent papers this afternoon on detailed aspects of this show, but for people who weren't there, I'd just like to remind you that this is a collaboration between William Gilbert of Gilbert and Sullivan and Frederic Clay, who was in fact Sullivan's best friend, as well as a composer. The score of this work is in fact dedicated by Clay to Sullivan. And it was during rehearsals of this show at German Reed's Gallery of Illustration that Clay introduced Gilbert to Sullivan, and of course the rest is history. Clay has been eclipsed by his more famous friend, Sullivan, but we think that there's a lot to be found and enjoyed in the music that he wrote, and we have really enjoyed working on this piece very much indeed, and we hope you enjoy it too. Professor Wayne Ward is going to regale you now with Clay's score.
Until he'd settled down comfortably in your new habitation.
But why should these goblins choose our castle above all others?
Yours, wait's name ere yours the nearke everybody's. The old castle has been uninhabited for 77 years, save by ghosties and sick like, since the death of Dame Cherry Maybud, whose portrait hangs there.
Oh, I know the last on the left.
Like ilk other possessor of the old castle, when she died, she left ne'er a will or title deed, and the ghostie stepped in, and folk wouldna think of having anything to do with such an uncanny place. So it remained uninhabited until your uncle, Sir Ebenezer Tare, of the firm Tare and Tret, alderman and tallow chandler, took it into his head to try the value of the old maxim that possession is 9 points of the law, and walked in one bra morning with nae a wee a leave, a by a leave, and nae more right to the place in the salt than a Morocco himself.
But nobody's likely to disturb him.
Yea, I'm nae so sure about that. If there's any truth in the old legend about how the wicked Sir Roger de Bohun sold himself to an awful uncanny apparition on the 13th of July, 1369, for right and title to the castle for 100 years. It's ne'er happening here when meets the eye in the daylight. The ghost is ne'er come out to the dark lin hours. In the castle, and nae more than a life interest. Being sorely pressed for silver, and wishing to mortgage the castle, he entered into a compact with the fiend on the 13th of July, 1369, that on Sir Roger's death, nae heir should be found until a century had slipped by. Well, Sir Roger mortgaged the castle and spent the silver like a graceless loon as he was, and then he died, and left ne'er a title deed, and ne'er a title deed was found until the 13th of July, 1469, when the Lady Maud de Bohun, whose portrait hangs there, came upon them quite unexpectedly in the drawer of her work table. She died and left ne'er a title deed, and ne'er a title deed was found until Sir Cecil Blunt, whose portrait hangs there, came upon them in a disused portmanteau on the 13th of July, 1569. He died and left ne'er a title deed, and ne'er a title deed was found, until Lord Carnaby, Poppytop, hit upon them wrapped up in a disused periwig, and by the way, his portrait hangs there. Well, he died and left ne'er a title deed was found, until Dame Cherry Maybud came upon them in the stuffing of an old farthingale on the 13th of July, 1769. Will you stop your blather and let me go on with this infernal exposition? Well, she died and left ne'er and heir a title deed, and the castle has been uninhabited for 3 weeks since. It's been just handed over to the machinations of the devil and his evil hobgoblins.
So the next century will expire tomorrow.
If there's any truth in legends, the word maun be fulfilled. And the legal descendant of Dame Cherry Maybud will come tomorrow morning cockcrow with the legal deeds in his grip and turn ye out, bag and baggage and neck and crop. I've just a notion I can spear an awful misfortune hanging over the house of Tare, and I name and redoute that it's associated with the dreadful legend of the wicked Sir Roger de Bohun.
I am only acquainted with one misfortune with which the house of Tare is threatened, the probable loss of its housekeeper, Mistress MacMotherly, if she continues to fill my niece's ears with her abominable superstitions. It's a misfortune which the house of Tare will bear with Christian fortitude. Now go. Gang away with you.
Eh, sir, but she can will. I'm telling her naught but what she can yourself to be true. Who was it who prophesied he goes 12 raw ships by fire and tempest this year? Why, Mistress MacMotherly. Who was it who prophesied he'd come down with the measles last year? Why, Mistress MacMotherly. Who was it who prophesied a bonny young callant would come a-courting Miss Rosa this week? Why, Mistress MacMotherly. And mark me, Sir Ebenezer, if I'm to be burnt alive for a warlock, I'll say it. There's just an uncool bad misfortune hanging over ye. And it's near associated with the old housekeeper Maggie MacMotherly.
Hey, what is that she saying? Man, let her have her way. She's a very poor old body, but she thinks like that. Well, possibly it's true. I am 482, but my talking's nae matter to be sniffing at. He may smack and he may twirl, you're a very saucy girl, but you'll have to buy experience with sighs and tears, and there's no excuse for you. You're an ancient body too. You've been 43 for rather more than 15 years. There's no excuse for you. You're an ancient body too. Oh, there's no excuse for you. You're an ancient body too. He may smack, he may twirl, you're a very saucy girl. He may smack, he may twirl, you're a very saucy girl. I'm blind enough, I know, but I wasn't always low. Oh, you treat your poor old Maggie as a guest child. Dear, having the legal money years ago. If she tottered through her duties with her eyes shut, he may smirk and he may twirl. You're a very saucy girl, but you'll have to buy experience with sighs and tears. But there's no excuse for you. You're an ancient body too. You've been 43 for rather more than 15 years. There's no excuse for you. You're an ancient body too. There's no excuse for you. You're an ancient body too. You may smirk, you may twirl. You're a very saucy girl. You may smirk, you may twirl. You're a very saucy girl.
She's a fellow body that beats like that. She's a fellow body that beats like that. She's a very, very fellow body that beats like that. My dear Rosa, if ever you go into housekeeping, well, when you go into housekeeping, take care to ascertain that none of your domestics is gifted with the curse of second sight. That woman has been in my service for 30 years, and she has done nothing but prophesy misfortune from the day she entered in until now. And what is worse, all her predictions come true. What was that she said about a bonny young callant coming to courtship, Miss Rosa?
Oh, I can't imagine what she could have referred to.
No one has been here except Mr. Columbus Hebblethwaite. Yes? It's my belief Miss she referred to him.
I'm sure I don't know why, Uncle. He's always very agreeable, but nothing more.
Now, Rosa, it's as well we should have a distinct understanding on this point. I've noticed that impoverished young man has been unpleasantly marked in his attentions to you, and that far from discouraging his penniless addresses, you had afforded him 50 means of prosecuting them during his week's residence at this castle with us. He quartered himself upon us without invitation. Thank goodness I've got rid of him at last.
Uncle, how can you be so unkind?
Cry away, my dear. It's satisfaction enough to know at this moment he's careering away at the rate of 60 miles an hour on the road to his native London. Let's see. The express started at 10:15 and it's now 11:30. So he's exactly 75 miles away from his beloved Rosa. And by a remarkable coincidence, his beloved Rosa is precisely the same distance from him. What was that? It shook me to the core. What was it, Rosa? Tell me, I implore.
I'd rather think, but mind I won't be sure. I think it's someone knocking at the door.
Gate, for it is not so late. 'Tis peace the Hebblethwaite, 'tis peace the Hebblethwaite. Permit me a short explanation. I left you to go to the station and thought not to see you again. Terribly flurried at the notion of missing my train. He really felt terribly flurried, terribly flurried at the notion of missing his train. This modern edition of coaching, I heard like a rocket approaching. I had very little time to look. In agony springing, I ran to the place where they look. So forward in terrible agony springing, we ran to the place where they look. I eagerly ran to the small of a store, I ran to the way I'd been there before. Ticket and laid down the price of the journey and more. I laid down the price of the journey and more. Give me cold eye to my home I fly, where the violets sigh to the evening sky. The skies on eve receive the sigh of the violet, where the violet gather the company. Come to my datchery, say my datchery. Roses and posies shall flower the way. Roses and posies shall flower the way. Come, come, clerk, oh come. My ticket I seized, I rushed for the station. The clerk had refused my polite invitation. Oh, harder, I fell to the earth. For I noticed the train, it was only too plain, was moving off to the land of my birth. Such a place, we're very glad to see, we're very glad to see.
What shall I say? You went away and spoke not of returning, and spoke not of returning.
It's very clear, it's very clear. He's come back here for Mistress Rosa Berney.
It does perplex, annoy, and vex. Forgive the observation. When just too late in breathless state, you see with irritation the starting train while you remain in deeper perturbation. To spend the night till morning light in some unheard of station. To spend the night till morning light in some unheard of station. It does perplex, annoy, and vex. Annoy and vex. It does perplex, annoy, and vex. It does, it does, it does. It does perplex, annoy, and vex. Forgive the observation. Just too late in breathless state, you see with irritation.
The morning train while you remain in dreadful perturbation. Spend the night in night in some unheard of station.
It does perplex, annoy, and vex. Forgive the observation. Spend the night till morning light in some unheard of station.
Your room is old and damp and cold, unworthy habitation. The spider crawls about the walls and leaves you in vexation. Had I but known you would have flown, you judge by this narration. To make it good this morning would have been my occupation. To spend the night till morning light at some unheard of station. It does perplex, annoy and vex. It does perplex, annoy and vex.
It does, it does, it does. It does perplex, annoy, and vex. Forgive the observation. Just too late in breathless state, you see with irritation.
In the morning train while you remain in dreadful perturbation. Spend the night in some unheard of station.
It does perplex, annoy, and vex. Forgive the observation. Spend the night till morning light at some unheard of station.
You must say something to him, poor fellow.
Say, why, what can I say?
Well, a few words, of course, that you're glad to see him back again and so on.
But I'm not.
Never mind, pretend you are. Leave it to me. Mr. Hebblethwaite, Uncle tells me to say that he's delighted at the fortunate accident that has procured him the pleasure of seeing you again.
My dear sir!
That he hopes to consider his house your home until tomorrow evening.
Until tomorrow week, if you like.
But Rosa, I
He
say...
also wishes me to say that he would have told you this himself, but he thought it would come more prettily from my mouth.
It does. It does. Oh, my good Sir Ebenezer, the warmth of this welcome overpowers me.
But, sir, I say, Rosa, go to bed. Go to bed, miss. I'll talk to you about this tomorrow. Well, sir, as my niece has given you to understand that I'm glad to see you back again, I said nothing of the kind, sir. I say, as my niece has expressed as much, I am put to the disagreeable necessity of echoing her opinion. So, sir, if you will take your candlestick, Mistress MacMotherly shall show you to your room. The room is in the roof, Mistress MacMotherly, where the rats are.
Yes, sir.
Good night, sir, and pleasant dreams to you.
We fly to fields of fancy, achieve a mystic flight by nature's necromancy. Good night,
gallery. Oh, of course, our picture gallery. But the pictures, I don't know them. They were not there when I died. Died? Then I'm dead. I'm sure I died. Then I suppose I'm a ghost. My own ghost. I wonder if I ought to be frightened. But who has the castle now? The title deeds disappeared the day before I died, in accordance with the wicked compact by which Sir Roger de Bohun would obtain possession of the castle 150 years ago. And by the terms of that compact, it would remain unoccupied for about 80 years after my death. But evidently it is occupied, and at least 80 years have elapsed. I wonder how my portrait's kept. It was painted many years before I died by Leonardo da Vinci, a rather clever young artist. He sent it to the Royal Academy, but he didn't know anybody on the hanging committee, so he didn't get it in. Let me see, where did it hang? Why, the picture's gone, faded away. Nothing left but the background. Oh, it's too bad. I think I don't know how much for it. These modern painters seem quite to have lost the art of mixing colours. Now a Cimabue or a Giotto would be as fresh as if it had been painted yesterday. It's too bad. Why, this is the very dress I was painted in, and my jewels exactly as I wore them. What an extraordinary coincidence! And here's the very rose that Messer Leonardo made me carry. But I came from there just now. I remember distinctly coming from that frame. Then I'm only a picture. Well, I'm glad I'm not a ghost. I wonder whose portraits these are. Dame Cherry Maybud, Lord Poppytop, oh, how perfectly charming. What a noble face. What magnificent colour. Why, there's a flesh tint. And then such dignity, such expression. I wonder who painted it. Michelangelo. I never heard of the gentleman. Quite an unknown man. After all, on looking at it again, his tea is very tricky. Quite a fourth or fifth rate production. Date 1602. Oh, some mistake. They must mean 1502. I died in 1600. I should really like to know whose portrait it is, for with all its faults, there really is a manly dignity about it which must have been strongly impressed upon the original. You are very handsome. Very, very handsome. I'm glad you're only a picture. If you were a real living man, I should be obliged to be rather particular. But as it is, I may say what I like to you.
So please you, sir, to hear my story while I tell. So please you, sir, to hear my story while I tell. The happiness awaiting you, a maiden loves you well. A maiden, a maiden, a maiden loves you well. She dares not to declare the love that makes her sigh, and would
see, I'm walking.
To land it off, I can't contrive. With fright, I'm nearly fainting. I never thought you were alive. I thought you were a painting. I never thought you were alive. I thought you were a painting.
To laugh it off she can't contrive. With fear she's nearly fainting. I never thought I was alive. I thought I was a painting. I never thought I was alive. I never thought I was alive. To laugh she can't contrive. With fright she's fainting. I never thought you were alive.
I never thought you were alive.
I thought I was a painting. A painting. I never thought I was alive. I thought I was a painting. I never thought I was alive. I never thought I was alive. I am indeed alive. So are you.
And how do you know that?
How do I know it? Why didn't you hang there during the 10 years I occupied this castle?
Did you occupy this castle for 10 years?
I did indeed.
But how do you know that I'm not the original of whom that picture is a portrait?
Because there's a limit to the beauties of nature. There's no limit to the beauties of art. In other words, you're a great deal too good to be true. Angels are not half as bright as they are painted, and the famous Leonardo da Vinci was a terrible flatterer.
Famous? Why, it was a mere nobody who painted me for a few pounds.
But after your melancholy decease, pardon my alluding to that distressing topic, he grew in fame and fortune, and before he died, York rang with his fame. Now, I would say you're worth at least £2,000.
Is it possible? And you?
I'm Michelangelo, a very fine example, painted by him 5 years before I quite unexpectedly came into possession of this castle, and 6 years before his death. I am worth at least as much as you. Indeed, I am a much finer picture.
So?
I am indeed. Look here. Here's drawing. You are the work of an artist. I am the work of an accomplished anatomist.
But how can you say so? Look at that hand. Look at its colour. Look at its drawing.
Yes, that's a rather sore point with me, but it's susceptible of explanation. You see, this hand has been recently restored by a royal academician. In point of fact, I've only one hand. This is not mine.
Oh, Cecil, please forgive my thoughtless remark. Indeed, I had no intention of paining you.
That sympathy completely reconciles me to it. Besides, although it's certainly deformed, I can use it freely enough. It was awkward at first, but I got used to it.
So I've spent years in this castle with Sir Cecil Blunt without knowing it?
Yes, that soft, melting gaze has been turned on me continually for 10 delicious years.
I wonder if he's married. I'm surprised that Lady Blunt allowed it. If I'd been Lady Blunt...
Lady Blunt? My mother?
No, your wife.
Oh, I never married.
I thought not.
Shall I tell you a secret? I never married because I was desperately in love with you.
With me? Oh, nonsense.
Oh, I'm perfectly serious. I used to sit opposite you all day, smoking and vowing to myself...
What do you mean?
Smoking tobacco.
And what is tobacco?
It's a West Indian leaf brought to England in 1565 by Sir John Hawkins. You place a portion of the leaf in a receptacle at the end of the tube and set fire to it.
But don't it make you ill?
It did, but I got used to it. Smoking and vowing to myself that I should never take a wife until I met your counterpart. Maud, I used to say. My own Maud. You are mine, you know, together with everything else in the castle. My own Maud. With all my heart and soul, I love you. I love you with the devotion of a lover who knows his happiness is on the eve of being found, and with the desperation of a lover who feels there's nothing else of the sort about.
Oh, sir, you're too bold.
One may say what one likes to a picture, you know. I gazed all day at those eyes, those cheeks, those lips, and dreamt about them all night.
I was just remarking that my lips seem to have lost their colour. Indeed, I almost fancy I can see the candles through them.
Ah, that's not Leonardo da Vinci's fault, that's mine. For 10 years, night and morning, I was in the habit of covering them with kisses.
Sir!
One may do what one likes to a picture, you know. Besides, after all, had I had the least idea that we should ever meet under such peculiar circumstances, I need hardly say that I would never have ventured upon such a liberty.
Then I suppose I must put my indignation.
Besides, after all, the offender was not me, but my prototype.
That's true. You can't be held responsible for everything that he did. So say no more about it. Let us shake hands.
With pleasure.
No, the other.
I beg your pardon. So am I completely forgiven?
Quite. A portrait, after all, is not like its original.
Very often it isn't.
One may say what one likes to a picture.
You allow that?
Yes.
In the pretty tale, lady mine, the fate that waits me by life is thine. 'Tis thine to spare, 'tis thine to kill, 'tis thine to fashion to thy will. 'Tis thine, 'tis thine, 'tis thine to fashion to thy fair will.
If this is so, what can I do? The word that kills, they will help me to. My hand and heart to thee I give. The word that saves thee now bids me live, now bids me live.
Yet ye tell me, oh, tell the fate that waits me. For lady mine, for life of death, of life of life, joy surrounding the soul of term of joy, a term of grief, so long without thee. I didn't speak.
I said,
Gracious, who are you?
I'm Lord Carnaby Poppytop. How did you?
Sir, what is the meaning of this outrage?
Outrage?
Yes, sir, outrage. You kissed this woman.
I did.
And by what right, sir, did you take such a liberty?
Liberty? Why, she's my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother.
Nonsense, sir. You are old enough to be her father.
Well, because I was painted at the age of 65. Lady Maud was painted at the age of 22. I was not born until 140 years after Lady Maud's death. And talking of liberties, by what right does my Michelangelo place his arm around my Leonardo da Vinci?
We are companion portraits, sir. Besides, don't it strike you as being hardly dutiful to interfere with the proceedings of your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother?
Well, this is my picture, and I may do what I like with her.
She's your great-grandmother, sir, and she claims the respect due to her extraordinary old age. Besides, who are you? I don't know you.
I'm Lord Carnaby Poppytop.
painted by Sir Godfrey Kneller in 1713 at the age of 65, and 44 years after coming into possession of this castle.
Sir Godfrey Kneller? No one ever heard of the man.
Well, no one would have ever heard of you if you hadn't been painted by an old master.
Oh, gentlemen, pray don't quarrel on my account. My dear, your grandmother is quite old enough to take care of herself.
I stand on my authority and wonder what you mean.
You're still in your minority, you're hardly 17.
Carnaby, verity, your goodness makes me blush.
Your Lady Maud's posterity, behave yourself as such. Your grandmama eternity,
You must be
mad. Like me, the Tare of rarity, a good completed man. I stand on her authority and wonders what you mean. She stands on her authority and wonders what you
meeting never seemed as sure as I'm alive. And on my 17 and 69,
So strange a meeting never seen. So strange a meeting never seen. For she's 17 and he's 65. Should I respectful homage pay? Respectful homage pay? Should I respectful homage pay? Should she make me feel obey? As her proprietor, as her proprietor.
should he make his will obey?
As her proprietor.
Should he make his will obey? As my proprietor.
She's so strange a maiden, never think should she respect homage pay to him, no. So strange a meeting never seen, as sure as I'm alive. My grandmama is 17 and he's 65. So strange a meeting never seen. So strange a meeting never seen. But my grandmama is 17 and I'm 65.
If there's any question as to whom you all belong, I think I can set it at rest, Lord Carnaby.
You know me then?
Perfectly. You are Lord Carnaby Poppytop, who came quite unexpectedly into possession of this property on the 13th of July, 1669. You died in 1716, and the castle remained uninhabited and unclaimed until I, Dame Cherry Maybud, quite as unexpectedly found the title deeds in my possession and entered on the property accordingly. Now you will allow me to settle the question you were discussing when I interfered. You will abide by my decision.
With
pleasure.
Very well, then. Lady Maud, you are clearly the property of Sir Cecil, who succeeded you to the property after your death. Have you any objections?
None whatever. Cecil, I am yours.
By the same rule, Sir Cecil and you, Lady Maud, are both the property of Lord Carnaby Poppytop, who, after Sir Cecil's death, succeeded to the castle and all that it contained.
But allow me to protest.
It is useless, sir. Both of you are clearly my property, and a man may do what he likes with his own. Lady Maud, come here. Sir Cecil, go there. Lady Maud, I think I shall marry you.
But Sir Carnaby Poppytop.
I protest against anything of the kind. Dame Cherry Maybud, please be careful how you make your award.
My valued Leonardo da Vinci, expostulation is useless.
This marriage is out of the question,
It's
sir.
really out of the question.
It's impossible, sir.
Why?
Because a man may not marry his grandmother.
I think it unnecessary to discuss that at present. Let me go on. We have decided that Lady Maud belongs to Sir Cecil, and that Lady Maud and Sir Cecil belong to Lord Carnaby Poppytop. It follows, therefore, that Lady Maud, Sir Cecil, and Lord Carnaby Poppytop all belong to me.
To you?
Yes, you are all mine, and as Lord Carnaby says, I can do what I like with my own. Now, I am going to dispose of my property. Lord Carnaby, let the young people alone. Sir Cecil, Take Lady Moore.
And if I refuse?
If you refuse, my course is clear. I shall sell you to the nation. You shall be hung up in the National Gallery when nobody will go to see you. You will spend an ignominious existence in the society of sham Rubenses, fictitious Raphaels, and every other impostor of degree.
But they won't buy me. I'm genuine.
Won't they? Don't be so sure of that. If you don't take care, I'll have you so restored that there won't be any trace of the original work left. They'll snap you up directly.
You're settling all this very coolly and comfortably, but don't it occur to you that it is a matter on which I am entitled to be consulted?
You? And who in the world are you, sir?
I am no other than the maternal grandfather of the present possessor of this castle, Mr. Alderman Tare.
Who are you, Bob?
I don't know.
When were you painted?
I was finished yesterday and hung up yesterday afternoon.
You're a dreadful dog.
I'm afraid I am. But that's me misfortune, not me fault. We don't paint ourselves, you know.
Are you considered like?
Like you.
Like whom? Why, like Mr. Alderman Tare's maternal grandfather, of course.
What is the man laughing at?
How dare you laugh in my face, sir? Explain yourself. I insist upon it.
My dear sir, don't excite yourself. But the question is really so absurd. You must forgive my merriment. Like his maternal grandfather. Why, my good friend, old Tare never had a maternal grandfather.
He never had a maternal grandfather.
Never had a grandfather of any kind whatever.
This is too absurd. Then who are you?
I tell you, I'm the portrait of Tare's maternal grandfather.
But bless the man, I thought you said he never had a maternal grandfather.
Never. But what has that to do with it?
Then you're an imposter, sir.
Not at all. Or, if I am an imposter, we're all impostors.
Explain yourself.
With pleasure. Tare says that I'm his maternal grandfather.
But you know you're not.
Of course.
Well, then you're lending yourself to an imposture. A picture with any sense of decency would have rubbed himself out rather than be a party to such an imposition.
But Tare's assurance don't stop there. He says you're his great-great-grandmother and you his great-great-great-great-grandfather.
It's monstrous.
What an infamous fabrication.
I never had any family at all.
And all he done is speak.
But Tare declares it's true.
But we know it's impossible.
Then rub yourselves out without further delay. A picture with any sense of decency would take any steps rather than be a party to such an imposition.
Come down, sir, and I'll teach you to bandy words with me. Come down.
I can't.
Why not?
Only an arm's length. Besides, I'm not dry yet. I might rub.
Coward. But who could expect nobility of soul in such a misshapen frame?
Oh, the frame's very good. Very good indeed. Well made. Solid. Good piece of work.
I'm alluding to your body, sir, not your setting.
My dear Lord Carnaby, let the poor man alone. He's a wretched dog, but he can't help that, you know. Besides, you mustn't quarrel in the presence of a lady. You won't, I know.
Won't I?
No, I'm quite sure you won't. If I ask prettily, you won't. Now, will you?
No, I won't indeed. Miserable signboard, your life is spared. But where have they gone?
Who?
Sir Cecil and Lady Moore. This won't do, you know.
There they are, my next portal.
It's very disgusting. So young and yet so lost to all sense of propriety. I shall go and call them back.
Stop! Reflect a moment. They are 200 or 300 years older than we are. Would it be delicate to interfere?
It's a rather difficult point. Are we to judge of their age by their years or their personal appearance?
My dear Lord Carnaby, if you judge a lady's age by her personal appearance, there'll be no end to the mistakes you'll make.
Yes.
Be content with the fact that they are ancestors, and let well alone.
I suppose there's no alternative. But I say, he's kissing her.
Let him. Young people will be young people.
But you just said they were old.
Then there are no fools like old ones. If they are young, we were young too. If they are old, then we've no right to interfere. Anyway, it's no business of ours.
Yes, we've been young, but we haven't been young together. If we had...
If we had, we would have made ourselves very ridiculous.
Do you think so? Very, very ridiculous.
I'm quite sure of it. I was very thoughtless and extremely pretty.
And I was very thoughtless and remarkably handsome.
Ah, time works wonders. Now there's a portrait of myself at the age of 19.
Exquisite. And there am I at the age of 23. At 23, Lord Carnaby, though anything but plain, was quite a coxcomb, as you see, so empty-headed vain. I rather think he used to drink no greater rake alive. How different to Carnaby at sober 65. Oh, not a bit like to Carnaby at sober 65. Not a bit like to Carnaby at sober 65. Not a bit like to Carnaby at sober 65. Not a bit like to Carnaby at sober 65.
Dame Jenny, 2 and 17, was such a sad coquette. She flirted here, she flirted there, with every beau she met. She sent a dart into each heart and played such thoughtless tricks. But oh, how different is she at over 56. But not a bit like in truth is she at over 56. Not a bit like in truth is she. Dame Cherry at soldier 6.
Not a bit like in truth is she at over 66. Not a bit like in truth is she. Dame Cherry at 56. I say, I don't wish to be rude, but wouldn't it have made it pleasanter for all parties if that portrait of Dame Cherry Maybud had come to life instead of this one?
Very well, then. Shall I go back to my frame and send her down instead?
Oh, do! You won't be offended, I'm sure. It's still you know, only younger and prettier.
Offended? Not a bit only.
Yes.
I was going to say that if Dame Cherry at the age of 18 is to take the place of Dame Cherry at the age of 56, then it's only fair that Lord Carnaby at the age of 21 should take the place of Lord Carnaby at the age of 65.
Ah, do you insist upon that?
Oh, yes, I insist upon that. Dame Cherry at the age of 18 would have nothing to say to an old gentleman like you know.
Don't you think she would?
No, I'm quite sure of it. She wouldn't hear of it.
Am I together that Dame Cherry at the age of...
56.
Oh, no, impossible! 35. Dame Cherry Maybud at the age of 35 would hear of it.
Oh, Lord Carnaby.
Really? Before a third party? You shouldn't, you shouldn't indeed.
Be quiet, sir, and look the other way.
By all means. Well, let's do.
Capitally. Stop like that until I tell you to turn around, or I'll rub you out.
There's only one thing to be done, to ask the sanction of our respected ancestors to our union. How they come.
There is one duty we owe our venerable ancestors, and that is to ask their consent to our marriage. Here.
What's this?
We were going to ask your consent
To what?
to my marriage to Lady Maud.
But why ask our consent?
Because you are our oldest relative.
But we were going to ask your consent.
To what?
To my marriage with Dame Cherry.
But why?
Because you are my great-great-great-old-grandfather. You are our ancestors.
We are your property.
Allow me, Your Highness. You are all the property of Alderman Tare, whose representative I am. Will you permit me to bestow the necessary blessing?
With pleasure.
Then bless you, me ancestors.
Well, now that that's comfortably settled. But bless me, the sun will rise in a few moments when we will have to return to our frames for 100 years. And I declare we've been forgetting the very thing for which we were restored, the title deeds.
The title deeds, they must be turned over to the next lineal descendant of the wicked Sir Roger de Bohun.
And I declare that lineal descendant to be... Mr. Columbus Hebblethwaite, who is stopping in this very house. We will leave the title deeds on the table. Well, he will find them when he descends to breakfast. There, the spell is broken at last, and may not be revived for 100 years.
In the morning, and Mr. Hebblethwaite starts at 6. It's little of Miss Rosa he'll see this morning. Here was it. Abstract of title of Mr. Columbus Hebblethwaite to Glencockaleaky Castle. And here are the original deeds, sure enough. Mr. Columbus Hebblethwaite, the owner of Glencockaleaky Castle. Why, Sir Ebenezer can't know this, surely. He ordered me last night to have everything ready for Mr. Hebblethwaite's departure by the 6:30 train, as he wouldn't have him in the house 5 minutes longer than it was necessary. Sir Ebenezer, Mistress MacMotherly, Miss Rosa, Mr. Hebblethwaite, here's the news.
Noisy Lord, what are you talking about? Is the house afire? Have you found your senses?
Miss Senses, I've found something more than that. Look here. Extract of title of Mr. Columbus Hebblethwaite to Glencockaleaky Castle. I found it on the table just this minute.
Hey, then the legends come true, and the 100 years expire this very day. The old castle passes into the hands of its legitimate owner, who turns out to be no other than Miss Rosa's Mr. Columbus.
But I protest against this, sir. It's absurd. It's impossible. I dispute it.
Oh, stop a bit. Let's not go to the law about it. I'll tell you what, I'll make a bargain with you. If you consent to my marriage to Miss Rosa, I'll say you can stay here as long as you like. What do you say?
Well,
we all live together?
If the deeds turn out to be authentic, and there is no doubt whatever as to your title to this castle, why, In that case, I shall have no objections to entertain your proposal. Rosa, on that condition, he is yours.
The subject drop, no need to stop. To make a long oration, to make all sure I shall endure elderly relation.
He goes thus yet, so breakfast get, there'll be no invitation. There'll be no need today, indeed, to hurry to the station.
The subject drop, no need to stop to make a long oration.
There'll be no need today, indeed, to make a long oration. There'll be no need.
There won't indeed.
There won't. The subject drop, no need to stop to make a long oration. He'll then go to make up show his elderly relation.
He goes not yet, so breakfast get, he'll need no invitation. There'll be no need to step me to the station.
Subject drop, no need to stop to make a long oration. He'll then go to hurry to the station.